warm welcome to you. It's Enterprise Morning, and here on Enterprise Television, I'm Choma Okohe.
And I am Henry Ikwibike.
Before we dive into our newspaper headlines for today, I want to ask you to have a say in what we say. Do well to visit us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7 and our website at www.enterprisetvnews.com. And we have our amiable guest with us in the house to do justice to our newspaper headlines and editorials this morning. And we have no other but Emeka Madnago, who is a public affairs analyst and commentator. Good morning, Emeka Madnago.
Good morning. Hello.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Okay, Henry, what are we starting with this morning?
Yes, so we're kicking off with the Guardian newspaper. And we have the big story here, Antimicrobial Awareness Week. Antibiotics abuse, worsen drug resistance. They claim 64,500 lives yearly. Okay,
still on the Guardian newspaper, we have whining has not been effective in stemming kidnapping. And details of that particular story are on page 29.
Very well. And also we have on the bottom strip here, NNPCL Ford's Falana insists Port Harcourt refinery producing fuel.
Okay, on the tax reform bill, Senate bows to pressure, suspends hearings. Details are on page 6.
And also we have whining, that's NIN, has not been effective in stemming kidnapping.
Okay, moving on. Oyo Ocean residents would never allow APC back in power, Makinde says. Details of that particular story on page 9.
Wow, that's a very big...
yes.
You know. So let's take a look at this issue, why NIN has not been effective in stemming kidnapping. Emeka Madnago, I think it's very important that we look at that. A professor, now Professor Pantami, but former Minister for... digital communication and all that, you know, during the Muhammad Buhari, actually championed the cause for the NIN, ensured that it came to the place. Yes. And today, at that time, he said it was NIN that can solve issues of insurgency, terrorism, kidnapping, and all the, you know, vices in our country. But right now, it's being stated that the NIN is doing none of that. It's not surprising.
Is he won't say anything.
No, not he is not the one saying it, but of course the general
of course NIN has never achieved anything. Otherwise you wouldn't have seen the spate of kidnapping and criminality, you know, on the high side. He's not achieving anything. Because do you know there are people who carry out, who register NIN as a business. Okay. Not necessarily of that person. They have identities, names, and all of that prepared that they sell to people. So they'll just take somebody's photograph and put there. It's another person's fingerprints that are there. You know, there are a lot of things that are being done now that you just wonder what is really going on. So the NIN is a total failure and should be scrapped.
Really?
Okay, now, if you're saying that there are people that do this as a business...
I found out.
Yes, you found out.
Yes.
Now, who is to be held responsible for this irregularity?
It's the federal government now. The government that did that because it was breached. The NIN was breached. Some time ago, it was breached. You know, so, you see, the sad thing is when governance becomes transactional. It's just about, okay, how much is government going to make from this scheme? Not about the end of ensuring the protection of privacy. Not that. And so, you now see government agencies have largely become revenue generating agencies. And then, what kind of people do they engage in handling some of those things? What is their pedigree? What is their background? Do the security agencies run background checks on these people? Do they check whether they have any criminal, you know, links, any links to criminals, to terrorists, to money launderers, you know, and other forms of criminals? Or is it just anybody that you just bring on board? So, there's still a lot that needs to be done in terms of the way we handle matters of public interest in Nigeria. And it's sad because the NIN is a total failure. Like I said, it's not guaranteed anything. It's just like registration of SIM cards. Let me tell you, there are people who have pre-registered SIMs. Do you know a lot of people have died? But there are people, do you know the electoral law says that if somebody dies, the members of the family are supposed to inform INEC about the person's death. But how many people are doing that? What happens to the identities? So when you now count that in the voters register, you have 90.3 million Nigerians. As the register, how regularly do they clean up the register? How regularly does INEC publish, put publications in newspapers to say, if such and such and such has happened, let us know.
Okay, now you're talking about INEC, you're talking about some part of we as citizens not doing our part. Now, in a country where we lack data, to start from the foundation.
No, we have data.
We don't
lack data. We have data. We have data.
So who is in custody of our data?
No, you have the NITDA, NITDA, Nigerian Internet something data agency. It's there.
In a country that is functioning this way, are we going to say we have data and everything is going
No. The thing is this, like a cup is a cup. Whether it's half full or half empty, or there's nothing inside, does not vitiate the fact that there is a cup and it's in existence. So data is in existence. Now, the form in which it is being handled, and then how safe, how is it being protected is another thing entirely. And I must tell you that nothing stops us from regularly collecting data. Even as an individual, nothing stops you from, also collecting data. You spend money, you have to do financial accounting. You have to check your health. For instance, like the doctors tell you to take 10,000 steps every day. You have to do that because it's good for your health. And a number of other things. So data ought to have become a part of our lives. But big data exposes, bad governance, exposes criminality, exposes terrorism. And people who are criminally minded in government will not want data to be robustly, used, because it will expose a lot of things. When government brings out budget, how many of those things, these budget items, are actually the result of data searches? How many? That's the question you ask. Do they run through? They just tell you we're going to do. Okay, look at the Senate. We just found out that there's a polytechnic somewhere in Ugep, in Cross River State, with just a few students, few members of staff, but they spent over 600 million on who? So those are the things. When people are, no, we don't have federal presence in our area. We need a university. We need a polytechnic. We need blah blah blah. Nobody is looking at. Yes, will it be better to put an educational institution here or something else? But it's just political consideration. Okay, just give them road. Just do a road straight. You're not looking at how will government recoup the money spent on that road. And that is the problem. So no data. The government has brought out its medium-term economic framework. It's going to borrow 9.22 trillion. How do you intend to repay that money? You're looking at that, okay, growth rate, GDP will grow to this, that oil, production will go to 2.06. When you are still at 1.8, how do you break down this? Then what happens in the event that you are not able to meet that 2.06 million barrels per day production for 2025? What are your buffers? What are your fallback measures? There's nothing like that. All we do in Nigeria is, we say we pray, oh God, help us. Without preparation, well, we need to be more serious in this country.
Very, very, very serious. We need to be serious, of course, and just to equally remember Pantami, who was the architect of the NIN, at a time when a family member of his was kidnapped. He was one of those he equally crowdfunded for the money or ransom.
True. So if they fail to fix it,
yeah,
exactly.
Definitely, very true. But let's get to the Punch newspaper for this morning. And we have the big story here: tax reform. Senate suspends a debate and panel meets AGF today. Some writers here: Senate constitutes a special committee to address concerns. Presidency urges urgent passage.
And on the top strip, you have fuel imports hit 2.3 billion liters despite local production.
All right, PDP will teach APC lessons in Oyo, Osun, Makinde.
Okay,
states.
still on the top strip, Senate summons KM overflight delays. Others, details of that particular story are on page 22.
And also we have a Naira devaluation raises foreign debt by 30 trillion Naira. That's the
Okay,
report.
moving on, federal government fires Togo, Benin degree holders from MDAs.
Yes, so that would so that's on page 2, I guess, isn't it?
Yes, it's on page 2.
Yes, but let's take a look at this issue on the Punch newspaper. Naira devaluation raises foreign debt by 30 trillion Naira. Emeka, Kadoso, if you may, you might maybe possibly bring us up to speed on the career tree of Kadoso, number one. The number two, why is he finding it difficult to maybe balance all of these issues? Because our debt is becoming alarming, and we would think that he was the best person to handle issues like this. Yeah. So how did Kadoso, where was he before now? How did he get to where he is today?
Yemi Kadoso has been a bank executive, but in retail banking. He has not worked in central bank. Then he was a commissioner in Lagos State. You know, I think for budget and economic planning or something under during the time of Bola Tinubu as governor of Lagos State. So he wasn't one of the prominent commissioners in Tinubu's government at that time, you know. So now the problem is this: Nigeria is poor. P-O-O-R, capital letters. Nigeria is poor.
Before now.
Even now, from time, Nigeria has been poor. We have never been rich.
No, if you're saying Nigeria is poor, it's as though we don't have anything at all. We don't have even mineral resources. We don't have anything. But if you're saying Nigeria is poor, is it from the fact where our leaders have misappropriated our funds and not doing the right thing and managing the funds we have? Or we are just poor as a country because we have nothing to write home about?
Good. One, much of what we have been spending in the last 40 years or more has been borrowed money. Compared to IGR, internal generated revenue. It's only in recent years that, you know, government, that we've been looking at internal generated revenue as an important component of public financing. You know, so it's always been, you know, okay, how much did we make from crude? Like the federation, like the constitution says that all monies made by federation should be paid into the federation account and shared in federal, state, and local government. Nobody is looking at liabilities. Nobody is looking at debts. So when there is a deficit, like you see the Tinubu administration doing now, 2024 just remains, today is 5th, just remains how many days? Maybe about 26 days to go. But they are borrowing, you know, they are going to borrow to cover the deficit for 2024. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we are poor when your deficits, when your expenditure, you know, is far ahead of your income. You are poor. There's no doubt about that. Whether you have natural resources or anything. You know the sad thing about Nigeria, we have natural resources, but our level of development of those natural resources is still at the level of extraction. I just dig out coal, load it in a truck and go and sell. There is no value addition. And that is what even makes the situation worse. And that's why Cardoso can't really do much. Because you know what? A lot of political considerations also come in the way. Dangote Refinery came on board. You know, said, okay, in order to reduce the price of petroleum products, you will sell to him in Naira. But his operations are being done in dollars. The machinery is priced and maintained in dollars. He has a lot of expatriates working for him, and they are paid in dollars. So you cannot be using your Naira, and which unfortunately has been devalued by subsidies gone and floating. You can't be using Naira at a weak Naira to pursue a stronger dollar. What you got to do is this. you've got to make your public finance tighter. You have to have fiscal reforms to make sure that wherever Nigeria's revenue is coming from, it has to be shored up. You've now seen the issue of the case before the court, concerning the former CBN governor, Emefiele. That he and his associates were allegedly making money from the difference between 450 official rate, 750 black market rate, that they were making money. It's an allegation, but you can imagine how this has been for years. This has been on for more than 30 years. Different foreign exchange rates for years, and imagine people who have made illicit money from all of this.
So what you're saying is the difference is deliberate.
It's deliberate. It's criminal because it has favored friends of the elite. Some organizations have used it. Apart from even that, what about import duty waivers, which has benefited a number of organizations, including religious organizations, faith-based organizations?
Which was fair, of course.
There's nothing fair.
Really?
Because if you do it for A, natural justice, you can't do it for one and not do it for another.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm saying, that some of these agencies and organizations, giving them waivers is fair, because I know too well, like patients who have, ailments that needs medications from foreign donors. When such medications come, we understand how expensive they are. The only way for these patients to get it is because waivers was carried out, was done. So don't you think that some of those areas were equally fair enough?
If that was the case, then drugs will not be expensive. Medications will not be expensive. If that was the case. Because the thing is that these special allocations were not tied, were not sector tied. They were not tied to sectors. They just said, okay, we will give. Let me give a very clear example. You have then you had 450 official rate, 750, but you couldn't get the official rate from banks. Banks will tell you to go and meet the street vendors of foreign currency. Now, look at the breach. The genuine importers could not get foreign exchange could hardly get foreign exchange at official rates. But friends of government were getting it. And you know what? A lot of it was being round-tripped. So if the government at that time had said, no, we're not going to have we're not going to have differential, in foreign exchange. We're going to have one foreign exchange rate, and which is 500 naira, we cap it. Now, if they had played here and there, remove all the corruption and all the round tripping and money laundering and everything, terrorism finance, if you remove all of those things, let me tell you something. Fuel wouldn't be more than 300 naira. Or will even be like 150 or 200 naira per liter. Because why? By now, we would have been forced to look inwards. We would have been forced to get refineries running. If these refineries are dead, forget about all the show being put up with the Port Harcourt refinery. If we have 20 refinery licenses, NNPC has 4, Dangote 1, Watersmith, 1, that is 6. Where are the remaining 14? If we had 20 robust refineries working in this country, even if you forget about the state-owned, or if NNPC had, for instance, sold those licenses to serious investors, you will see that there will be so much fuel produced locally in the country. It would have brought down the rate of, it would have brought down the cost of petrol. And then you know what? We would have been exporting. So instead of us continually talking about how people are smuggling fuel, we'll be exporting. So when a lot of export is being done, because crude is our mainstay, so instead of just exporting crude, if we're also exporting the products coming from it, as many as possible, you will find out that today our exchange rate, the level of the naira would have been stronger by now, because we would have been able to even up a lot of things. But today, the Tinubu administration basically believes that the only way it can show up its financing is through borrowing. And that's why you see consistent borrowing, instead of plugging the leakages. How come you find a lot of people in tax administration are wealthy? They have so much money. They're so wealthy. That tells you something is wrong. Look at people in security agencies, the customs are so wealthy. Where are they getting the money from? Those are the loopholes you need to plug. When you plug those loopholes, I tell you what, much more money will come into the economy and things will stabilize.
Thank you
But
so
the
much.
Tinubu administration is still talking about borrowing. You are borrowing when you have not fixed, you are pouring water into a basket.
That's great. Thank you so much, Emeka.
Definitely.
Without wasting much time, let's get to the last daily.
Okay, okay. Let's just look at one or two, and we'll call it go for today. And the big story here: Senate AGF to review tax reform bills today. Public hearing suspended indefinitely. New committee, an aberration.
Okay, moving on the top strip, you have how tax reform bills put Barrow on the spot.
And also on the bottom here, Lakurawa responsible for Zamfara explosion. That's coming from the Nigerian police.
Okay, let's look at that particular story. Emeka Madnago, Lakurawa responsible for Zamfara explosion. That
60 seconds, if we may.
In 60 seconds. Must some sect be held responsible for the failure of our security operatives from doing their job?
That's a double-edged question. Look, let me answer it from the end of the question.
Okay.
If security agencies don't do their job well, then criminals will have a field day. It's as simple as ABC. If they do their job well, then it will be difficult for criminals to proliferate, to operate. And it's as simple as ABC. Do you know that there are 2 local governments in Borno State where the Nigerian military, I understand, has refused to go to? Because they tried to attack Boko Haram there and they lost 120 soldiers in one day. So they have refused. They have refused. So the thing is this: if you're talking of Lakurawa, behind explosion, now you say the Lakurawa has moved down to the north central. So what it then means is that our regular methods of fighting insurgency, fighting terrorism are not working anymore. So we must tweak our methods. We must find a new way of doing this job, of dealing with these terrorists. And then again, one of the problems is, the socioeconomic side of it. People are hungry. People are destitute. So what will happen? When people are in IDP camps doing nothing, just roaming about, they get, government is feeding them, and the burden is so much. What will they do? They will go and fend for themselves. If terrorists offer them money, like you see on TikTok and all that, when they offer them money, of course, the attraction will be so much. Because, look, the cliche says, he that is down, finish fear no fall. So these people are down. Whether should they do nothing and let hunger kill them? Or should they join Lakurawa and at the worst, they get killed? They will just look at it like they say on the streets in Nigeria, all die and I die. So the problem is government, while fighting these people on the battlefield, should also do something about the poverty ravaging the people. That is even the biggest problem. All of this giving out rice, building houses and all that for people, they've not worked. They are not working. You are just, what you are doing is that there is a deep wound. Instead of you to treat it, cut it, do the necessary thing you need to do, what you're doing is that you're just cleaning it with, you're just cleaning it, and the wound is still bleeding. You must adopt serious measures, in terms of getting people reintegrated back to their societies. These people are farmers. Subsistence farming is all they know what to do. So you must find a way. Don't tell me that in an entire year, okay, the governor of Borno State cannot go to his hometown. The speaker and some other top individuals in that state cannot go to their hometowns. So where do we go from here?
But wait, they can't go to their hometowns, but if they're about to contest for election, the ballot process will get to their
No, they do the elections in the IDP camps.
Really?
They do the voting in the IDP camps.
Wow.
So what it tells you is that when there is a convenient escape route, there won't be that challenge to think out of the box. So there must be that. I know Governor Zulum has talked about shutting the IDP camps. But when it gets to the point, you have to consider, where do you send these people to? If you send them out, Lakurawa will just open their arms wide and absorb them. So you must find new ways. I can't think for them because they earn salary. That's why they earn salary. So they should think of new methods. They can consult a country like Algeria that has defeated insurgency. You know, they can consult Sri Lanka that has defeated insurgency to find out how can we decisively deal with insurgency. If you cannot access a place with your troops, what about airstrikes? Using our aircraft, using drones. You can use airstrikes to really pound them. When you pound them successively, they'll disintegrate, and then you can now move ground troops into it.
Well, I just want to believe that would work, because it's beginning to look like an ideology. And it's difficult to defeat ideology. Well, that's just about the time we have for our segment today. Thank you so very much, Emeka Madnango.
Thank you so much.
And just to let you know that Emeka will be around to equally take us on our main conversation for today. But when we return, activist lawyer Dele Farotimi remanded over defamation allegations as court adjourns a bail hearing to 10th of December. That in the beat is still Enterprise Morning. Please don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.